Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, Twitter, X, whatever. And you can now follow me on Instagram, Movies TV Mad X. You can also follow me on TikTok. Mick isn't perfect because guess what? Mick isn't perfect. So welcome to today's video. Well, there's one thing you can guarantee about our beautiful entertainment industry: when they're not making any money, when the roof falls in, they finally make the changes they should have made a few years earlier. So it's been confirmed by Marvel Studios that they're going to start making films in a group called Marvel Spotlight, which basically is Marvel Elseworlds. It's like the DC Elseworlds label that we're going to get with Joker Folie à Deux, the Batman 2, the Penguin series, etc., etc., etc. Because this now is kind of confirmation by Kevin Feige that cinematic universes no longer work. That's why he's doing this. So how they've explained it is, basically, these Marvel Spotlight films and streaming shows or whatever they're going to be will be character focused, that have nothing to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And something else that hasn't been lost on me is, don't be surprised with all the talk about Blade lately if Blade is a Marvel Spotlight movie. I personally think it should be. I mean, we just saw the Echo trailer as well, which had this kind of R-rated vibe to it. I've always said that Disney and adult content don't mix. You've got to stick to your target audience, and this is the problem that Marvel have. Being under the banner of Disney is a very difficult situation for them. But, you know, it's kind of ironic, because if Kevin Feige was as clever as all you lot think he is, and the pundits and the media think he is, he should have ended the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Avengers Endgame. That was the right time to do it, and announced Marvel Spotlight there. We're just going to make movies. We're just going to make streaming shows that have nothing to do with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Endgame is the conclusion of our cinematic universe. Now we're just going to make individual movies. Maybe there'll be some spin-offs and things like that, but mainly just movies. Because one of the problems that Kevin Feige and James Gunn is also finding right now with DC Universe, really great directors, auteurs, don't want to have anything to do with a cinematic universe. We saw it with Ben Affleck. He tried to bring Ben Affleck in. He's tried to bring some A24 actors in over to DC Universe. They've said no, because they don't want James Gunn, another director. They don't want to be directed by a director. That's not what they do. This is the problem that they had with Snyder. You know, in the DC Extended Universe, he's an auteur. He wants to do his thing. He don't want to be directed by Geoff Johns or somebody else. And this is the problem. You know, so what they're doing now, not only is this kind of confirmation that Marvel Studios and Disney know that the cinematic universe is dead, but that they want to get really good directors to make great content. But what you need to do here is, this is how I do it as a studio. Kevin Feige really now has to take, I don't know how to pronounce that surname, by the way. Is it Feige, or whatever it is, right? I don't care. You know who I'm talking about. But Kevin Feige really needs to take a back seat now, creatively. What he needs to do is bring in people with visions. He needs to bring visionary writer-directors in. This is what I would do. Like Matt Reeves, people like that, like Todd Phillips, and say, I want you to make me a Marvel movie. I want you to do whatever you want with it. Pick a character and do it, and redefine it in your own way, right? This is what I would do. So you get something. So basically, the Snyderverse is from Zack Snyder's vision, right? And Chris Terrio's and other creators, but mainly Zack Snyder, right? So the DCEU, like the 3 movies that Snyder did, are his movies. That's what I'm talking about. Bringing visionary directors who are going to do their own things. And, I think this is the future for DC Elseworlds as well, because I think DC needs to forget this DC Universe thing. I don't think it's going to work. They were better off just making an individual Superman film under James Gunn rather than it being part of a cinematic universe. I think that's the problem. Cinematic universes are dead. And Kevin Feige can see that. He can see it. He should have seen it after Endgame. That was the time to end it. And if fans went mad because there was going to be no cinematic universe anymore and just movies, let them lose their shit. And it's very interesting when you look at the Eternals, because they kind of tried to do that with Eternals. But the Marvel fandom found that movie quite tame and boring at times. So it's interesting, because you can make a good visionary Marvel movie while it being exciting and interesting for the viewer as well. I don't think Eternals is a terrible movie, but if you're used to watching fast-paced Marvel Cinematic Universe content, then you're not going to agree with me there. I also don't think it's one of the best films ever made, nowhere near, and I'm not trying to say that. But one thing's for sure, the cinematic universe is over, and this is why they're doing Marvel Spotlight. But, the thing is with me, because it's difficult to do a cinematic universe, because it's like working on a TV series. You need your Bible. Every time you make a movie or a streaming series, you need to go back to that Bible. When Todd Phillips was making Joker Folie à Deux, he didn't have to go back to anything. He knew it in his head. He's just made one movie. The same with Matt Reeves' The Batman 2 or the Penguin series or the Arkham series they're going to be developing very, very soon. But when you're in a cinematic universe, a long-running one, like the Marvel one, it's very difficult. It was peak for 3 phases, but everybody could see. I'm stunned, right? I'm not a mainstream person in Hollywood. I'm not a Hollywood writer-director, right? I don't have their experience. And I know, and you know, that the Marvel Cinematic Universe should have ended with Endgame. We all know that. But some people are still living in denial. There's still a lot of pundits and shills, MCU shills out there that don't want to see the MCU end. But I'm sorry, boys and girls, it's over. It's done. It's kaput. There's no money in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But if they bring in these visionary writer-directors to make Marvel movies and Marvel streaming content as well, and it's not content, proper, artistic, vision, a proper artistic vision, that's what Marvel needs. The problem is with Marvel, it is deemed to be very, very Disney-fied in a way, and you've got a certain audience there. That's the problem. You can do individual movies with DC. You can have someone come in with a vision. Because let's say, like Zack Snyder's Man of Steel isn't everyone's cup of tea, but it made just under 700 million. That's not bad. If the budget was a bit lower for that movie, it would have made a lot more money. Like Batman vs Superman making 870 million. That's not bad for a divisive, polarizing movie. Clearly, it cost a lot of money. They needed to make more, or they wanted to make more, and they didn't. And the Snyder Cut is revolutionary, isn't it? It's an amazing Justice League movie. Good luck making an Avengers movie or a Justice League movie anywhere on that level. Good luck, James Gunn. You're really going to need it. And this is the problem. There's no vision in a cinematic universe. It's just a puzzle. You go, right, this bit goes here, that bit goes there, and it's boring. It was exciting watching the MCU build out its universe at the beginning. But just because something once worked, it doesn't mean it will continue to work. There's so many things that have been popular in pop culture that wouldn't work today. There's a reason that Friends was a phenomenon, because at the time they were making, TV shows about young people in groups, like 30-something, and Friends was just something. It was a product of its time. What's happened with Friends is it's a bit like the Beatles or something. It's so iconic. It's so wholesome that you can keep on watching it, and they're still our friends, and there's a familiarity with that, but it doesn't mean you could do it today. And I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the same beast. You'll go back to those movies and say, wow, I remember this, right? In 20 years' time, when you have your own kids, right? Because there's a lot of young people who have followed this franchise, you'll be saying, you know, wow, look at that. We had Robert Downey Jr., one of the finest actors, Scarlett Johansson, one of the finest actors. You know, we had so many great actors here. And, you know, you'll remember it with, you know, with pride, and you'll say, wow, I remember sitting there when Tony Stark says, I am Iron Man, right? And he snaps his fingers. It's an iconic moment. It was an iconic franchise. But that's the moment it was done. When the finger snap happened the other way, and, you know, Iron Man sacrifices himself, that should have been the end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They should have known it was over. Because I still don't know who made the decision for Chris Evans to leave, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, because I know those three were a team, and they probably made that decision together. I mean, surely Kevin wasn't dumb enough to say, oh, you're leaving now, we're starting afresh. And when they left, they decided to be a lot more inclusive and representative. And, you know, the fandom menace have coined the phrase, the MCU. Well, it may sound like they're being very, very sexist, but it has become the MCU. But surely there's a way to represent females and have female-led movies, as well as male, you know, male-led movies, black male, black women, black female movies, lots of different stuff they could have done. But you've got to make good movies. But we have this thing in Hollywood also, if there's a female-led movie now, especially like in DC or Marvel, they have to get a female director, a female composer. It's quite funny. It's interesting, actually, quite ironic that Joker and Joker Folie à Deux have a female composer for a male lead, because it shouldn't matter, should it, whether it's a male lead or female lead? But this is the way new Hollywood work, and it's pathetic. And that's why they're on their knees, and that's why they're on the brink of bankruptcy. And that's what's happening at Marvel Studios, because Marvel Studios isn't a big studio, because it can't do a variety. It can only make movies about Marvel. That's the thing. So its income is very limited. You know what I mean? It isn't a Warner Brothers, for example. It isn't a Universal, for example, can literally tap into any genre they want. So for Marvel Studios to work, Marvel has to work. And what's happened is, because they've tapped into identity politics but done it badly, you know, because there's a way of representing and including people. And what you want to see is black people standing with white people, right? That's what it's all about, isn't it? That's what we want. We don't want division. You could, as I said the other day, you could quite well do a great trans superhero, but it can't look like you're pandering. It can't look like you're virtue signaling. And the problem is, I've said this, I may have said this yesterday as well, the audience have become paranoid about what the industry are doing. But when you've got people in the industry calling out men, and, you know, it's become a big, big problem. And we don't trust these people anymore because they're so politically motivated. And it's very, very sad. We live in a very polarizing society, and it's not just about entertainment. It's about a lot of things. There's an element of paranoia about everyone. Oh my God, this person's just said that. I don't like you. And that's the world we live in today. And it's affected our movies. Things like The Last Jedi, you know, get so much shit. And films like Batman versus Superman as well. But going back to the cinematic universe thing, yes, Feige should have finished it off with Endgame and did this, you know, these Marvel movies, these individual Marvel movies. Let's call them, you know, whatever they're going to call them. I forgot what I said it already, didn't I? And I've already forgot. But anyway, yeah, let's call them Marvel. Basically, it's Marvel Elseworlds. Basically, when they're focusing on characters that have nothing to do with the MCU, and this is where they're going. And I'm assuming, look, Feige's got a bit of a problem here, because he's got to find a way to phase out the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I don't see how it's going to make money. Because even when you look at the future projects that they've announced, and everyone was praising Feige when he announced phases 5, 6, did he announce phase 7? I can't remember. He had this big map, and this is the problem with these big, and everyone was saying, well, DC don't do this, because it's stupid to do so. Because let me tell you, the problem with doing that and having big plans, they can go awry. You can lose an actor. Now look at the guy playing Khan, Jonathan Majors. He's got himself in some legal trouble. Who knows if he's guilty or innocent? I'm not here to talk about his guilt or innocence. Basically, life is very, very fragile and anything can go wrong. Now they need to get rid of Majors. And now they're talking about bringing in another villain into it. The best thing, this is what I would do if I were them. I would cancel every single Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. I know it's dramatic. And say, we're just not doing it anymore. At the very least, finish it up with Phase 5. Tell my stories and finish. You know, we've seen that the box office for the Marvels isn't looking good. I mean, the only film recently to do any good business is James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Because it's James Gunn. Because it's Guardians. Where's he gone? Oh, he's running DC now. Again, another tactical error from this person you all think is a genius. And if only he decided to do these Marvel Elseworld movies after Endgame and not have a plan for Phase 4, not have a plan for Phase 5, not have a plan for Phase 6, don't have any phases, don't have a cinematic universe anymore. Just do films, just do individually focused Marvel movies. Bring in a visionary director who understands the Fantastic Four universe to do something amazing with them. Because the person who's directing that movie don't have a fucking clue about Fantastic Four. But they're not going to do that. So it's going to keep on happening. Unless you get good, talented, intelligent people to make film, you're just going to be digging yourself a deep hole. And this is what's happened at Star Wars with Kennedy, and this is what's happening with the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Kevin Feige. So how comes he did such a good job for such a long time? Well, I mean, it depends how you see it. I mean, I like Iron Man. I don't like Iron Man 2. I like The Incredible Hulk. I like Thor. I like the first Captain America. I like the second Captain America. I love the Thor movie. I love the first Avengers movie. Iron Man 3 is utterly entertaining, but it is a betrayal of a lot of elements of Marvel Comics. And then you've got the Thor sequel, which wasn't great, Dark World. I didn't totally hate that movie, but I can see why people do. And there's not actually many great movies within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, the Avengers movies were pretty cool, right, to a point. But when you look outside of that, there wasn't really many success stories. There was financially. I'm not talking about finance, and I think that's the problem with this generation today. They look at box office and Rotten Tomatoes and cinema scores over the quality of a film. You can't scrub out a bad movie just because it's made money. Sometimes, actually a lot of the times these days, bad movies or low-key movies or mediocre movies make a lot of money. And a hell of a lot of low-key, mediocre, mid-movies were making money at the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There was a time that all you had to do was put the Marvel logo on a film and it would make money. Not anymore. It's dead. Now they've got this Deadpool movie coming out, and again, it's a lot of nostalgia bait. That's why Hugh Jackman's back. I don't think it's going to have a lot of originality to it. I think people are really excited for that movie, but I think ultimately it probably will be entertaining, it probably will make money, but people will also see through the nostalgia bait as well. I think the sooner they can retire the Marvel Cinematic Universe and focus on these Marvel movies, these Marvel Elseworld movies, the better they'll be. And maybe they can make money. But here's the thing. CBM's superheroes are not fashionable anymore. And they need to come to terms with that. So they'll make money if they actually get visionaries in to make movies, but they won't make the money they once did. And here's the problem with having a Marvel studio. They want to make big money because there's nothing else they can make money from, and that's the problem. People didn't look at this. This is when you have a DC Studios, it's an independent body, but it's owned by a bigger studio. So they'll be okay. But at the end of the day, Marvel isn't going to have the big hits. Whatever it does things, this is what Marvel stands have to understand as well. No matter how good the movies they make are, and if they're not as bad as they are now, you will never have the Marvel dominance that you once had. Cinema is coming back. The individual film is coming back. The cinematic universe is dead. And the sooner people accept that, especially you stans, the better. This year saw Barbie and Oppenheimer doing very, very well. Whether they're classics or great or in different movies, it doesn't matter. People went, they made money, they had a good time watching them. That's the point. That's why movies, kind of the concept of movies and entertainment was invented, to have a good time. And, cinema wasn't created for cinematic universes. That's why television was invented, to have serials. You can't be having serials in cinema. As I say, it worked for a time. And when something works on such a high level, as it did with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Hollywood want to copy and pattern that. I spoke about that as well yesterday. But this kind of announcement that they're going to do these Marvel Elseworld projects shows you that they know that the gig is up. The Cinematic Universe gig is absolutely up, and there's no going back. But what does Kevin do now? This is the problem. This is what I said earlier about, when everyone was going, well, look at Kevin Feige. He's got all this planned out. And now it's like a dead weight hanging on each shoulder. Because what's he do with it? These plans, these movies, the Kang Dynasty, this. If he can't use Kang anymore, he can't have the Kang Dynasty. He had all these big plans. And now from one actor's alleged conduct, it's all gone down the swanny. So what's he do? He has to cancel them. He can't do any of that. As I say, if it were me, I would release the Marvels, which is what they're doing. It probably won't totally flop, but it won't make the money the first movie made. That's almost certainly true. And just admit that we should have ended this after Endgame. We didn't. We made a huge mistake. We made a huge mistake with the streaming shows. We went too far. And we went too far. We were making too much shit. And we weren't employing enough people. So, Kevin Feige wasn't stretched thin. But he's the one in charge. He's the one who should be able to have support there for himself. So if he's spread thin, it's only his own fault, because after all, he is the president of Marvel Studios. And if he can't make sure that he's supported, then who will? It's a bit weird. It's like drawing or painting something and say, oh my God, I didn't paint a well there. I didn't put water in the well in my painting. Well, whose fault's that? You're the damn painter. And it's the same with Feige. So he needs to redefine Marvel Studios and Disney. Disney have got a big problem here because they've invested big money the past few years in Lucasfilm, Marvel Studios, and the Fox acquisition was the biggest of its time. But the problem with the Fox acquisition is that I always wondered this, because everyone said if they bought Fox, they would dominate because they would have the whole Marvel catalogue. But here's the problem. Now, comic book movies and superheroes aren't a trend. People will always watch a good superhero movie or TV show. No question about that. But it isn't a trend anymore. So you've spent so much money on Fox, right? You've gutted, and this is the funny thing as well. They've gutted 20th Century Fox, right? It's now 20th Century Studios, by the way. They've gutted that. They've fired everyone. It's a nothing place now. And basically everyone was going, well, they've got Marvel, they've got all the Marvel characters now, but nobody cares anymore. That's the point. So they've just invested all that money in 20th Century Fox, gutted it out. It's now nothing. What are you going to do with it? Because every time people hear 20th Century Studios, we know that it's no longer 20th Century Fox. We know it's another arm of Disney. And that makes a huge difference. Because when I think something's made by Disney, I go, oh, it's Disney, I'm not going to watch that. That's my automatic mentality today. It's a bit like the CW. Oh, they've made another DC show. Well, I'm not going to watch that. Because there was a huge debate yesterday on Twitter that, oh, the CW had all these great DC shows. They were at the beginning. But then they started making mistakes with identity politics themselves. First two seasons of The Flash were outstanding. The same with Arrow. Superman and Lois has been a great show, of course. I think that Legends of Tomorrow started off quite well. Black Lightning had a great run throughout. But there's also the lame ducks. And in the end, the CW got a bad reputation. And it's kind of the reputation that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has got now. Because a few years ago, the Marvel Cinematic Universe was a badge of quality. And it's not anymore. The reputation is dead because they became lazy and overstretched themselves and made bad art, content, whatever you want to call it. Or not bad content, but middling content, boring content. I haven't watched a Marvel Studios product for a very, very long time. I didn't watch She-Hulk. I didn't watch, was it Secret Invasion or whatever it was, with Samuel L. Jackson. I haven't watched any of that shit. I got bored. I moved on. And so did the rest of the world. And so does Hollywood. It's interesting this week, moving away from Marvel, seeing this new Whoniverse introduced, like a brand for Doctor Who. Introduced at a time, for example, where brands and universes are not a thing anymore. So will this work for Doctor Who? Because ultimately, having a Whoniverse on the iPlayer, having everything in one place is great and promising big spin-offs and a big universe. But you've got to do it. RTD has already said that that's such a way off. So he's teased the Whoniverse, but apart from older stuff, there's nothing there. Is it branding? Does it work? Do kind of streaming universes work? Look, I don't think that Doctor Who is going to get much kind of selling power by doing this. Now, he did this already with the Sarah Jane Adventures, the Doctor Who show, of course, and Torchwood. It worked. He already had an original universe. He did it. And he did it really on his own with a very small production team in Cardiff. Amazing achievement. Can he do it again? I have my doubts. This is what I'm saying to you. And using Marvel as an example, it worked for a short time. But in the end, people see through this branding. Because when you've got Robert Downey Jr. and Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans, that's great. When you've got great people making movies, it's great. And for 3 phases, yes, 3 phases, because it did work for 3 phases pretty much. But as I say, there was a lot of mid things in those 3 phases. But people look back nostalgically, don't they? It's what happens. Rose-coloured glasses, as we see in the UK. And that's okay. But at the end of the day, it's done. It's over. And, when I say there's no money in cinematic universes, there's no money in cinematic universes. And I've said this to James Gunn directly on social media. You need to rethink this idea. There's no money in it. There's no money in it. The people are hungry now for art, for artistic integrity from auteurs. Oppenheimer has nearly made $1 billion. That's ridiculous for a biopic, even though Nolan hates the Janier biopic. I mean, I don't know what the geezer's talking about, but hey, I love you, Chris, you're a genius. But yeah, people want to see film. People want to see art now. There was a time when people didn't care about art and auteurs during the peak of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Oh, post-credit scene! Oh my God, I must go in the toilet and play with myself and have an orgasm about the latest post-credit scene. But not anymore. The gig is up. The Campier and Randolph gig is up. All of them. Sycophanting, sucking off Kevin Feige. The gig is up. People now don't care about casting rumours or arguments about film universes online or DC versus Marvel. It is done. It is over. We had Harry Potter versus the Lord of the Rings at one point. All made by Warner Brothers. Lord of the Rings was produced of the extended arm of Warner Brothers New Line Cinema, and Harry Potter was made by WB Pictures. They were dominating two of the biggest franchises of all time. But what did they know? They knew when it had to end. Peter Jackson was always only going to make a trilogy, right? He came back and did the Hobbit trilogy afterwards, but Harry Potter was only going to make a certain amount of movies. then they got out of Dodge. But all of a sudden, we're hearing about the Harry Potter universe on Max. A very, very bad idea. And as I say, I am stunned that the industry that should have the experience to do the right thing and make art, because that's what people are hungry for now, art, don't understand that situation. And should I tell you why they don't understand? Because the people who understand movies and entertainment don't work in Hollywood anymore. It's just politically challenged people, obsessives trying to push their own ideologies and propagandas. That's what the industry is now. That's what many different industries around the world are today. Many people don't know the industries they're working in, and Hollywood don't understand the industry they're working in. But guess who does understand it? The consumer, the fans, because we obsess over great art. The gig is up. Step away from cinematic universes, or you will continue to lose.